would like to call the Jefferson Elementary School District Governing Board meeting to order for December the 6th, 2017. The time is 7:01. Can we have a roll call?
Shaquille Ali.
Here.
Manufo Leah Inga Anawai.
Here.
Clayton Koo.
Here.
Rebecca Douglas.
Here.
Marie Briswell.
Here. As I turn this on. Okay, so let's see. So we'd like to stand and we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, board members, let's review our meeting guidelines. As you select one. Okay. Okay. So we can move on. So let's have the approval of the agenda, please.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Excuse me, can I make just a minor adjustment to the agenda? Item 10D, we need to correct the maximum not to exceed amount to 160,000. That would be the correct amount.
Okay, the number is 10 what?
10, item D.
D.
Yep.
Okay. So you want it to be changed to
160,000.
60,000?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
That is actually a consent agenda item?
that's correct, but it's part of the agenda, yes.
So we probably should have taken it off the consent
We're
agenda.
not discussing it, I just need to change it.
No,
So-
we didn't change it, we probably should have, but we'll
Oh.
do it like this. It's our
Okay.
last meeting here. Okay, so we're gonna have to do that again. anyway.
Yeah, so we'll need to do
We'll
a new
just do
motion
it.
as amended.
Okay, so you're not taking it off.
No.
Okay. So,
So I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as amended. Second.
all in favor?
Well, before we do that,
Oh,
can I
yeah.
just ask why?
Oh, well, if you add up all of the contracts that are attached, it's closer, it's over that amount. And so we just did an addition error.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna just say that we, thank you for telling us, we make that change.
Yes, thank
We
you.
approved it, we had one motion to approve the agenda. Could we have that motion without saying as amended, please? Because we're not amending the agenda. We'll do that at the time of approval of the start items.
Okay.
The way we should do business, okay, please?
Okay.
Okay, so, can we do that
I
again?
guess it's not a change to the agenda at all, yeah.
No,
Got
so-
it, just to change that item. So we actually still have on the table the original motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, well, then we shouldn't have even looked at the second one anyway, so we're really doing great on this last meeting here. So, a motion was made and second to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you.
We'll get to the other one later. Okay, everybody,
I don't want to approve something you don't even know why.
so, yeah. Okay, so item number 6 is the Governing Board Annual Reorganization. And so we are going to start that. I just wanted to make a couple of comments, if you don't mind. Just wanted to actually thank the board for allowing me to serve as president this year. As we all probably know, it's been over 12 years. And I hope that I lived up to your expectations and that we had a great year working together. And I thank you for that. So under this item, we will be doing election of officers. So at this time, I would like to make a nomination for president. And at this time, I would like to nominate Manumufo Aniyat. I can't say it, so gosh. Anyway, you all know. I'd like to nominate her for president. So is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We would need to do a roll call for this, please.
And I was going to say,
Dr. Douglas, you have
We
something?
haven't in the past, but let's do it. We
Yeah,
can do it.
No, that's, yeah.
Okay, so can we have a roll call vote on that?
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Miss Leah Inga Anawai,
Aye.
Mr. Koo,
Aye.
Dr. Douglas,
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela.
Aye. Congratulations.
Okay, so now a brief switching of the seats.
Yes, we will switch seats.
Sandy, would you move the cakes?
Oops. Yeah, we'll get them purses later. You might have more money in your purse.
So before we get moving on to the next, I'd like to, on behalf of the board and the school district, present Mrs. Brizuela with her president gift. We have a gift here of a clock. Let me sit down so that I'm not bending over. This is Jefferson Elementary School District with your favorite logo. Marie Brizuela, in recognition of your dedication and leadership as president of the Board of Trustees 2016-17. Hold it up there.
Should I come down?
Also, a nice bouquet with no lilies.
He knows I'm allergic to lilies.
I think we all are.
Thank you. I just want to show you, this is beautiful. And I know just what to put on my desk at home. And I will think of you guys always.
Yeah,
And
as
that's-
time
He
passes.
made a joke about this logo, but this is a logo that's been around for at least, I think it's 20 years. I went back trying to find one the first time I saw the logo, and I love it because it really is representing children, and it's in a circle, and then, anyway, I saw another logo coming out that I thought was sad. But anyway, so thank you, I can look at this every day.
Wonderful.
Love it very much. And I will say thank you to all the employees, both our unions, working very closely with me at all times.
So you know what to do.
And the last thing that I got to do as president of the board, because the year went by really fast, was putting together with Bernie the celebration at TRP. And for those of you that went there, it was amazing. For those of you that didn't, you missed a lot. It was beautiful, and I hope that we can find the money and the time and the efforts to make our other schools look just as good as that. And then I just want to say that it's sad, but I'll still be here, and this has given me the motivation that maybe I'm gonna stay here until it's 45 years. No, just I'm really not kidding. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. I wanted to comment on your service as president, but I will probably deflect to do that at the end of our reorganization. So at this time, I'd like to open the floor for nominations for vice president.
I'd like to nominate Clayton Koo.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. 2 years in a row? You didn't learn it. Have fun.
He's going to get it wired.
Okay, we have a second on the floor. Do we do this via roll call?
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela,
Aye.
Mr. Koo,
Aye.
Dr. Douglas.
Aye.
Miss Leah Inga Anawai.
Aye. Thank you. At this time, we'd like to open the floor for nominations for clerk to the board.
I'd like to nominate, why am I at all? I'll take Shaquille Ali.
Second.
Sorry.
We have a second. All those in favor? Do we need roll call for this one as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela.
Aye.
Mr. Koo.
Aye.
Dr. Douglas.
Aye.
Miss Leah Inga Anawai.
Aye. Yay. Congratulations to the reorganization of our new school year.
We have one more election, the representative. Mhm.
So a representative to the board, secretary.
No,
County
the
council.
representative,
The representative.
representative to the county council. County Committee of School District Reorganization. Yep.
There we go, that one. I'd like to nominate Ms. Brizuela.
Oh, thank you. My party. I'll accept that. I've served before.
I'll second.
We have a second. after acceptance. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela,
Aye.
Mr. Koo,
Aye.
Dr. Douglas.
Aye.
Ms. Leah Inga Anuai.
Aye. Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
we got the vote done.
Before we move on to communications, I just wanted to take this opportunity and also to ask the board if they wanted to, I'd like to convey my gratitude for your leadership this past year, serving as our president, and also many years before that. I think the district has moved and shifted in many ways under your leadership, and we thank you for your voice. And we thank you for continuing to navigate and guide us as a board member and as a community member. So we thank you. And I'd like to congratulate my fellow board members. I'm looking forward to a new year.
Thanks.
I don't know if anyone has any other comments. If not, we can move forward on communications.
So I also want to thank President or former President Brizuela for her work to lead our board. There were a lot of, I know, the difficult challenges and stuff that came along the way, so I just want to extend my appreciation and thanks as well too.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on appreciating both the work in this year as the board president and the, how many did you say? For the total service to the district. That's something that is really an amazing gift to our community.
I think it's 38 this year. I have to count it.
Thank you. I want to thank Ms. Brizuela for the nomination and for the board for this opportunity. I've said it in the past, especially culturally in my upbringing, I don't believe we need a title to serve. We always and are able to serve in any capacity, and I hope that I will represent our board well in this role, but I love being on this board, and I have much respect for my fellow trustees and the leadership that each of you bring to the table and that I continue to learn from, as well as our administrators. So hats off to everyone at the table to ensure that we continue to do quality work for all of our students and the families that we serve. So moving forward to communications, board member acknowledgments and commendations. We'll start off to my left. I think we've been starting.
Start the other way. I haven't, trying to think what, it's been so long since our last meeting. There was, of course, I think since then, the opening at TRP, which was an amazing event, and it's so exciting to have that school with us. Your school, available to us with the reconstruction and the new construction. It's just a beautiful thing. I want to toss out, just from reading through some of the, what do you call them? The things from the newsletters
bulletins?
from the schools. Sorry, it's been a long week already. That, just that there's a lot going on in the schools. There's a lot right at this time of year. I noticed some really positive things. Tobias School having 2 walk to school days this week, encouraging that, getting out and exercising as the weather is beautiful. Some of the others having special musical events and things, so have fun with everything there as we work our way down towards our winter holidays.
Thank you. Trustee.
I also want to commend everybody who planned the ribbon cutting for the Thomas R. Policy Middle School. It was a great event. Thank you to Ms. Brizuela for being the MC for that event, and it looked beautiful. And I also want to commend Benjamin Franklin School, who had their jogathon, I think, last week. They raised, I'm not sure how much money they raised, but they raised quite a bit of money. 9,000 and counting, as I was corrected. But just want to congratulate them on the first annual jogathon event as well.
Trustee.
Oh, me?
Brizuela?
Okay. Well, I already kind of said something about the TRP, so that was a great event. I'm trying to think of what I went to too, because, I don't know. I did have, my husband had surgery, so it kind of kept me away from a few things. But, yeah, sorry. Does seem like a long time ago, doesn't it? Well, I'm not going to bore you with some of the stuff, but anyway, I did go to some of the events. I went to the PAC meeting, which was great. And it's amazing to see, it's fun to see the parents be able to come. And I'm hoping that in the future we can encourage more of them to attend, because it makes a big difference when they kind of feel the excitement at going to the meetings and learning everything. So and I want to thank you for what you do there too. Other than that, I'm going to pass.
Okay.
Trustee Ali,
Not at this time.
thank you. Correspondence and superintendent comments, I will pass.
Just a few. So yes, for the public, the board is aware, we were in San Diego last week improving and increasing our knowledge on boardsmanship and different aspects of school district governance, which was great. I enjoyed myself, and I'm sure the board did it as well, or I hope the board did as well. I just wanted to announce here in a public setting, I know it's been announced on social media, but Woodrow Wilson accomplished a tremendous feat this fall. Last year, they were awarded a grant from one of the local foundations, I'm not exactly sure which one, to give them a good start toward trying to build. It's not a real AstroTurf field. It's sort of like a very thick carpet that many schools in San Francisco have installed and have found very useful for soccer play during the lunch periods. And then throughout the fall, they received contributions from the Daly City Police Officers Association, the Daly City Police Activities League. District 5 Supervisor Canepa made a contribution from his discretionary funds. They held a walkathon, I believe a week and a half ago, or maybe 2 weeks ago, where they raised the last bit of money that they needed to raise to be able to bring this to fruition. And so we'll be working with the school to bring it onto campus. It is our only school that has no greenery. So it is a school where the kids are playing soccer regardless of there being an AstroTurf section there or not. They will play soccer, but this at least gives them a surface that may help with their running, or if they should fall, the skinning of their knees and stuff like that. So we're excited about that, and hopefully we can have a ribbon cutting of that, but maybe not quite as elaborate, but something to acknowledge that. And no, that's about it. Those were my only comments.
That's great.
Thank you. Administrator comments?
Good evening. Just a few announcements. High school district for 8th grade families, if you're entering high school, they're having open enrollment right now. And so if you go to their website, www.juhsd.net, they have their online registration. It's all online, and you need to, if you want to select your school because they have open enrollment, you need to do so by January 5th. And then on the other end, for incoming kindergartners to our district, we are having a Countdown to Kindergarten event on Thursday, January 18th at Thomas R. Policita Gym from 6 to 7 p.m. So we're getting the word out, but just to let folks know that's happening.
When is that?
The Countdown to Kinder is January 18th, Thursday at 6 o'clock.
We have that already on our calendar.
Thank you.
I'll pass.
There it is. Hey, thank you very much. Actually, I have a little sad news, and I'd like to ask the board this afternoon if they could consider closing today's meeting on behalf of Helen Mock. Helen Mock was a teacher here at Jefferson School District. I worked with her at Policita for 11 years. She was a special ed teacher there as well as at FDR. So she passed away just last week, and I'd like to ask the board to consider closing today's meeting in her honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, administrators. At this time, we'd like to open the floor to any persons wishing to address the board. At this time, I have not received.
Oh, we didn't get any papers yet. I didn't get any.
No. Yeah, I didn't receive any speaker cards. So we will move on to general functions. At this time, we'd like to open roll call for consent agenda.
Just a reminder that we are modifying the text under 10D to 160,000 maximum.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda under item 10D.
10D.
10D, that we change the amount of money, to increase it to $160,000.
Second.
We have a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela,
Aye.
Mr. Koo, Dr. Douglas,
Aye.
Ms. Leah Inga Anuai.
Aye. Thank you. At this time, we have the wonderful task of reorganizing our board subcommittees. This is,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, that was,
you okay?
I forgot about Bernie, but it's a star.
So we will, the board will consider the composition of existing subcommittees and appoint 1-2 board members as representatives to the district board subcommittees. So they are listed here. Do we have, going to open it up to the, I apologize, this is all new to me. Are we opening this up
Well, let's take
for
one.
action?
Let's take one at a
approval
time.
Before nominations?
Yeah,
or-
we can take one at a time, have a discussion, and then a motion and a second.
So the first,
For each one? We've never done that before.
We can take them one
We
at a
just all
time.
said what committee we want to be on.
Yeah, that's what the discussion's about. Yeah,
Oh, the discussion, but
Yeah.
not the motions, one by
yeah,
one.
okay.
so we will open up with the first subcommittee of Parent Involvement Advisory Committee, known to most of us as the PIAC, and it requires one representative. Do we have any volunteers?
You know, I would be willing to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Douglas. We have Dr. Douglas. We have the Wellness Committee. Do we have anyone that would like to serve on the Wellness Committee?
I'd be interested.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Koo. We have we require 2 members for the City of Daly City and Coma and other local partnerships. Do we have any?
I'd like to be on that one.
Thank you, Ms. Brusuela. Do we have anyone else?
I'll do it.
Thank you, Trustee Ali.
Yes.
We require 2 members to serve on the Jefferson Union High School District and local elementary school districts Board Policies
No,
Committee.
Well, that's the separate one.
I would like to,
Okay.
do we have anyone else?
I'd
Wait, which one are you doing?
The Jefferson Union High
Oh,
School.
okay.
I'd be interested as well.
Thank you. And the last is our wonderful, fulfilling Board Policies Subcommittee.
I will continue to serve on the board.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr.
Douglas, for your due diligence. Do we have anyone else? No takers?
We need another
I
one.
will jump in with you again.
Thank you.
I thought you might have wanted that.
Well.
All right.
I do.
All on your sword.
So
But you know
it looks
what?
like we've got all of our subcommittees assignments, and I would like to ask for a motion to approve.
Would you like to read it since you?
Yeah, I was
Okay,
gonna say,
okay, I'm
back
sorry.
so we-
Okay,
yeah.
here we go. Our subcommittees are for PIAC, we have Dr. Douglas. For Wellness, we have Trustee Koo. City of Daly City and Coma and other local partnerships, we have Trustee Brizuela and Trustee Ali. Jefferson Union High School District and local elementary school districts are myself with Trustee Koo. And for Board Policies, Dr. Douglas and myself.
Okay. I'll make that
Do we
motion.
have a motion?
As you stated it.
All right, I'll second it.
Thank you. We now,
Those in favor?
We can do a voice vote for this.
I'm not used to using this thing. Now we have our
We
advice.
need to vote on that, Ms.
We have to vote on this?
Yes, so
Okay,
that's,
I thought- I'm
that one's
sorry.
an action item, so you can just do a voice vote. It's not, roll call is not necessary.
Okay, so we have,
All in favor, so.
all in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, this seat came came quick. I was trying to say thank
It's
you
okay.
to our president, and I got voted in,
Yes.
so
It's okay.
yeah.
You have a good coach next to you, and
That was-
I'm here
yeah.
also. I'll throw a lifesaver to you if you need one.
I was trying to say thank you to the board president tonight, and the vote happened, so, yeah, I apologize. So moving on to F, the superintendent advisory committees. This is informational?
Yeah, so this one, as you remember at our governance session last February, we had a discussion what's a board subcommittee, what's a superintendent advisory committee, so we've separated them now so it's clear. This is just from time to time, there's something that I'm considering or one of our departments is considering, and we just would like to have a group of board members as a sounding board. No action is taken. I think last year it was helpful for the group to meet and learn about the budget before it was presented to the full board and be able to give advice about what's important. And, we continue to do those things. So that's what they are. We have 2 at this point that I would like to have board membership to provide advice. Or not, it's not advice, just feedback on items.
I'd like to serve on the budget. Is it budget and facilities together?
Correct, yes.
So
Budget and
We'll
facilities.
open it up right now, Trustee Brucewella, so thank you.
Well, there's no vote. I think it's just letting
Volunteers,
me
right?
know. Is there another person that would like to be?
Did as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I will comment that I know that Dr. Douglas and I have been on the curriculum and instruction, and that's been a great experience, so there's a lot of value in these committees. So both require, or as Superintendent Vidales has mentioned, the request is for 2 to serve on each, and the first would be for budget and facilities. Do we have anyone interested?
Yeah, we got
We
Mr.
have-
Brucewella and Mr. Ali.
So we have Trustee Ali and Trustee Brucewella. Thank you. Now we have for curriculum and instruction. Do we have anyone that
I'd
would
be
like to?
happy to go on to
Okay.
serve again.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. So thank you very much. I will contact you, or somebody will contact you about when we can meet, and when there's an item that we would like some board perspective on.
I just wanted to say something that, because it said it here in the agenda, and I meant to say it, but then we jumped to this one, but you mentioned that under F, the advisory, that it's only advisory and no board action can be taken. But the same thing holds true for the other committees as well.
That's correct.
We're not allowed to make any votes or give any dialogue that would imply that we agree or disagree unless we get the full board telling us how they feel about it.
Thank you.
But I want to make sure that we always understand
Yeah.
that and feel that, because sometimes I don't think we discuss it ahead of time.
Thank you for the clarification. I
Yeah.
included it on this one because it was sort of a new structure that we're doing. And so I just wanted to make it clear that it's not going to make any decision. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we got that done.
So we have now a call for nominations for CSBA Subregion 5B Delegate Assembly, and this is an action item. And the administration does recommend that the board considers nominating a local board member for this position.
Yeah, we have 2 nominations for you to consider. We may nominate both of them. One of them, of course, is our own trustee Koo. And the second one is trustee Kalima Salahuddin from the Jefferson Union High School District for your consideration. We can accept them both at once. You can separate them out. It's up to you, President.
I would like to suggest that we accept them at once unless there's an objection to it.
No, I was just about to make a motion that we accept, or that we nominate both Clayton Koo and Kalima Salahuddin.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
And just for the board to understand the process, this is just nominating. We get a ballot, I think, in February or March, that we'll vote on the ballot, and we'll select however many we need to select from that ballot. Okay?
And also, I'll make clarification, since I served on those positions before, is that it's only necessary to have one nomination to be a
But
candidate.
to be on the thing, right.
Nobody ever really sees who gets nominated or not. It feels good when you get another nomination, of course. But some people think it's like Mr. Vidal just said, that we're voting, but we're not voting. It comes later on. So, okay.
We do have to vote to nominate them.
Yes, we do.
So did we have a motion? Did we have a second, Ms. Kovari? Yes, we
have a
do?
motion,
Okay,
we have a
great.
second. That doesn't require.
It requires a
Yes,
vote,
call for a
yes.
vote. Oh, okay, we could get we have a first and we have a motion and a second for trustee Clayton Koo, and also trustee from the Jefferson Union High School District, Salhuddin. We'd like to have that approved by the full board.
I think we've always done a voice.
You want roll call? or-
A
No,
roll
we don't
call
need
for-
roll call. I think a
We
voice
have-
vote is
we have in the
appropriate.
past. It's okay. It's
Not a
nice for them
it's
to
not a
know.
resolution.
No, I know, but we have done it. But
It's
that's
up
all
to
right.
the president to decide.
You
It's not
decide.
necessary.
Yeah. I think we've determined that everyone's in agreement, so if everyone can acknowledge with an aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Scheduling board reports. This is something we're going to open up for discussion. And this is for the members who've attended the CSBA Annual Education Conference. So
Yes.
we do have someone scheduled tonight, but are we
Yes.
opening up to
Mr.
schedule our other
Ku's
members?
arm was twisted, and he's first, since he was doing another
Oh.
report anyway. Since he
I was
was
wondering what that was.
Since he was doing another report, we figured we'd just lump them together into one. So we do have 3 more to schedule. We can do up to 2 on a given evening. It'd be nice to have at least 1 in the January meeting and each of the February meetings, but we can do 2 and 1 or 1 and 2.
Oh, here, I'm looking at it, put the dates on.
So we have January 17th as our next board meeting, and then we have February 14th if you're not busy.
We only have
We
one
will-
in
and then-
January.
Yes, correct. And then we have February 28th.
Okay. Is that something you wanted to schedule, or could we
No, I
take
I think it's helpful for the board to determine and then vote on it so we can put it on the calendar.
Trustee Ali, did you want to take on the 17th of January?
Maybe February.
The February?
Yeah.
I'll take the 17th.
Okay, thank you. And then after that would be the end of, would that be the 28th, Superintendent?
Yep,
Fidelis?
unless somebody wanted to
I
do,
can take the 28th unless you want to put Ms. Brusuela and I together. I mean,
it doesn't matter, it's up to
Ali
you.
and I.
We can take up to 2.
Okay,
So-
so I wouldn't mind taking the 14th with
Okay.
Trustee Ali.
All right, wonderful. So now if we can just vote on that to calendar it, that'd be great.
Okay, we have a motion for that, please?
So I'll make a motion to schedule Mr. Suela to present on January 17th and Mr. Ali and Ms. Liagi Anuai on February 14th.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now we have the approval of restated and amended easement deed to the city and county of San Francisco.
And I'll invite Mr. Niblin from our county counsel's office to explain a very simple process, but you may have questions that you want answered.
Thanks. And I won't go into too much detail because I think that the agenda actually lays out fairly clearly what happened. But my recollection is I was probably looking at the same cast of folks back in 2015 when we were bringing this, maybe with an exception, but I think everybody looks familiar.
We're older, we're all 2 years older.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely familiar myself. But anyway, as you'll recall, SFPUC, the Public Utilities Commission, in connection with essentially a groundwater project that they were undertaking, had approached the district about the possibility of placing a well at the Ben Franklin Intermediate School site. And, rather than sort of monkeying around with the possibility of a condemnation action, et cetera, we ended up negotiating an agreement with SFPUC. And a component of that agreement was involved a transfer of property interests, including a number of easements. One of the easements actually, at this point, hosts a well there at the Franklin School site. Another one of the easements that SFPUC purchased at the time was an access easement, an easement that they would use to get to the well to service it at various times. And over the course of the last couple of years, it's become clear that the easement that they purchased, the access easement that they purchased at the time, wasn't really the optimal location for that easement. And they would prefer, and frankly the district, in working with with SFPUC, agrees that another location would be a better place for it. So what we've done after having sort of gone back and forth with SFPUC and all this is brought to you for consideration a document that would essentially amend and restate the access easement that I was describing to move it to the more optimal location. Our perspective is that the value of the easement we're talking about is effectively about the same as what SFPUC paid for the easement back in 2015. So there isn't any money involved here, but there would be a new property description to, again, move the easement to a location that works better from a campus perspective and works better for SFPUC's purposes. So that's really what we've got in front of you, and we've included a copy of the, in the packet, a copy of the easement document, the legal description, and just wanted to put this in front of you and see if there were any particular questions you all had in terms of the matter.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't know if everyone's aware from the picture that was provided in the backup information. For me, I'm logistically challenged, so I was trying to figure out the picture from where it is now to where.
I can describe it. Okay. So originally, we had agreed that we would grant the easement from, I would believe it would be the westernmost aspect of the fields, the ones closest to the Westlake Apartments, to come around and curve and then come to the well, which is right below the school's parking lot. That was the original grant that we gave. Over time, it became clear that it would be much more direct and maybe better if they just came in straight off Park Plaza. And so that's the one that we're considering switching out. So now it's just a straight line off Park Plaza.
Thank you.
That's along what would actually be the south edge of the baseball field.
Yeah.
It comes in behind the thing. I just happened to have been down around there a couple of days ago, and I saw where.
Yeah. Essentially, that's what they were using for construction the whole time. So,
that's what I
so it's like, well, we've
Why would we
used
change it?
this
Yeah.
and it works better. Like it wasn't natural to use the other one. That was the more natural access route. So that's why it was changed.
The other is where there was already a ramp existing, so it must have seemed like it made sense, but this is straight off of.
Yeah,
Park
before
Plaza
the construction
well.
began, it seemed like that was the more natural access route. But after construction and seeing as how that was used throughout construction, it's like, well, this actually is better. So.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for clarification? Thank you. So I'd like to ask for a motion.
Okay, I would like to move that we approve the restated and amended easement deed to the city and county of San Francisco.
Second?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. Have a nice evening.
All right, thank you.
Good seeing you all.
Happy holidays. Now we're to discuss the tentative agreement between Jefferson Elementary School District and the Csea Chapter 233 for 2017-18.
So we've concluded negotiations, and it's represented here by the tentative agreements and backup documentation. The unit has not yet ratified, but I still recommend that the board approves it, because upon ratification, it can take effect. So, and it stated pretty clearly that the board's agreement to approve this is contingent upon unit ratification. So we won't move forward without that.
Great.
Do we have any questions? I'd like to ask for a motion.
I move that we approve the tentative agreement and MOUs for the 2017 to 2018 school year between Csea Chapter 233 and the Jefferson Elementary School District. And of course, is pending approval by the SMCOE, which is San Mateo County Office of Education, and unit ratification.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we are looking at the 2017-18 school year salary schedules for CSEA positions.
Yeah, so this is a related item to the previous one. Again, this one is a contingent upon the County Office of Education approving the agreement as well as unit ratification. And it will not go into effect without without either of those being true.
Do we have a motion, or actually, do we have any questions or need for clarification? Now I'd like to ask for a motion.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the 2017-2018 school year salary schedules for CSEA positions.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Our next order of business is business and financial. We have our fiscal year 2017-18 first interim budget review. Fun stuff. Thank you, Ms. Fiscal.
So it is 7:40, so let's see if we could pay attention. Sometimes this comes to us at 9:40, and that's really hard, but today we're lucky.
I think your last page came, oh, that's true.
We have chocolate too.
Good evening. I'm here to explain to you the district's current and likely future financial position for the next couple of years. And the reason for this, of course, is it's required, as well as it gives you the information that you need to make the decisions that you need to make with the education process that the district is here to serve. I'm going to ask you to wait till the end for questions because I've got a feeling you might have some. So first off, this is the obvious. This is the first interim report. You approve 2 interims a year. And this one is the financial position as of October 31st. So that's a little over a month ago. And then January, you'll do the second interim. And of course, the second interim will be coming to you, well, it'll be as of January 31st, but come to you in March. And so that one comes to you with the governor's January proposal information on it, so it'll be updated for that. The interim report includes, the official interim includes 2 financial years after this year, so it includes 18-19 and 19-20. But for just your information, I include 2021. It's not part of the official report. Okay, so since you adopted the budget, or we adopted the budget, you voted to adopt it. The state came out with its budget, and so we've made the adjustments to our budget in accordance with that, and we've also made other adjustments as we've moved along as the school year actually started. And so first off, I just want to let you know that the COLA is remaining the same. The gap funding for the LCFF target decreased slightly by 0.78%. That was a $23,000 decrease for us for right now. And so the target at the beginning of the year was basically $3 million. Funding at the 43.19% gap funding level. So this is the gap in the target, the $3 million. And so of the gap, in other words, the unfunded portion of the target, we received $1.3 million this year. That leaves a remaining unfunded gap of $1.7 million. And in the future, we will be getting that. So since the first interim, the budget has changed. I mean, since the adopted budget, the budget has changed. The revenues have changed basically $1 million. And the majority of that is almost $900,000 in one-time funds. That is because when the governor put out his January proposal last year and then May revise, he wanted one-time funds to be paid in May 2019, which is the next fiscal year, and so we were not allowed to recognize that in the current year. But then when the legislature approved the budget, they decided not to, they decreased the one-time monies and made it so we would receive it this year. So that was included into the budget, and then also site donations were included into the budget, and that makes up our basically $1 million increase in revenues. We have a $1.2 million increase in expenditures, and most of that is in carryover at the site level, at the district level, and then the site donations, they match the expenditures will match the revenues. So it's pretty even there, and doesn't change the adoption very much. So the multi-year projection is very important. It shows the direction that the district's going in and the financial health of the district. In the first interim, we're using the school services gap funding levels, the 39%, the 41, the 44, for all these out years, and then the state's COLA. There is no one-time funds, because the idea of one-time funds is that they're one-time in nature, so we can't really, the county would not allow us either to budget for those in future years. We don't know what they're going to be, so there's no budgeted one-time funds in this budget. We've had federal and state revenues for the future. We're leaving them at flat levels without COLA in them. A big thing here is the unduplicated count. As you know, our unduplicated count has been going down, and right now, from last year, and what we've got budgeted in this budget is 70.11%, which it's a 3-year average, and because the prior years were higher, this year we have 71.27 that we're receiving funds on. I'm going to show you in a future slide that that's changing and to the positive, so that's a really good thing for us. A really big thing and a troublesome thing is we have declining enrollment, and we have declining enrollment protection, which allows us to receive funding at the level of the prior year. So enrollment translates to attendance as people come, as the students come, and our attendance is around 97.5%. And so the moment the enrollment goes down, the attendance is going to go down, and when the attendance goes down, our money goes down a lot, a whole lot. So for this current year, we're down 183 students. Well, we're down a little bit more than that, but when you translate that to ADA, we're down 183 ADA, and that costs the district $1.7 million. We're not experiencing that loss this year because we've got the declining enrollment protection. But next year and the following years, our revenues are going to be down, and this is in the multi-year projection now, by $1.7 million per year. I also want to let you know that last year we were down 61 students, which is $558,000. This year, our revenues are down by that $558,000 because we lost the declining enrollment protection that we had last year. These two combined is $2.2 million loss of funds. That's really big. And of course, we'd like to get the students back so that we will get these funds back. But right now, we're in a declining position. So that is troublesome. Included, but the financials include that loss of funds, okay, in those out years. Included a step and column, STRS and PERS increases. There's going to be the last slide, of course, will be STRS and PERS increases again. I always want to show it to you how much more we're paying, and that we feel that the state should help support us in that. And in this financial report, with the multi-year projection in 1920, in order to meet a 3% reserve, not the 5% reserve that we want, but in order to meet the 3% reserve, we will need to cut, according to this budget, okay, $3.6 million. And in the following year, $6.1 million. Now, I don't want you to panic yet. It's kind of, we've got good, we've got bad, okay, because it's going to get worse, but then it's going to get better. And then we'll see what happens, okay? Then you can ask the questions. This $3.6 million, if we have ongoing cuts of $3.6 million, that amount is subtracted out from here, so it's not an additional $6.1 million. It's just the difference between the two, so it's 2.15, I think, something like that. So, of additional cuts.
Okay.
Also included in this budget is, if you recall, we set up a committed funds in Fund 17, $6 million towards textbooks. So this year we have a planned purchase of $1.6 million in textbooks, and $1 million of those textbooks costs we're going to planning on taking out of that reserve and bringing it into the general fund. Then in 18-19, we don't have the big textbook purchase. In 19-20, we've got another big one. So we plan on taking $1 million out again in 19-20 to help support the cost of the adoption. But the multi-year projection does show this in the 19-20. It does show the $1 million coming out and coming into the general fund out of the reserve and into the general fund. And this current year's does show this $1 million. In a later slide, I'll let you know I'll be coming to you with a resolution to uncommit these funds and then to bring them into the general fund, because that's required. So this is, and I printed a full page for you on this so you could see it better, because I know the half pages were too small to see. And so this is the multi-year projection. This was the adopted budget here. This is the first interim. Here are the 2 official years, and the 2021 is an unofficial year. Up here for a reminder, included in these numbers out here already are like placeholder cuts of 3.6 million and 6.1 million. So when I say placeholder cuts, that just means we're fictitiously reducing the expenditures, but not saying for what they are in those out years. Mm-hmm. So, as you can see, we've got deficit spending all the way across here. And these 2 years, they look small, but that's because they've got the cuts included in them. So in other words, this $2.3 million of deficit spending would increase by 3.6 million if we did not make the cuts. And same thing with this. This is $74,000, and it would increase by this $6.1 million if we did not make the cuts. Right, so the future's showing that. Now, I want to go on to the next slide. This one is not that important in the sense that, or these 2 numbers, because they have this 3.6 million and a $6.1 million cut, that's why we look like we're nice and flat. That's just the 3% reserve right there. If we don't have these cuts, we'd be down here, right? We'd be negative funds. So we would eat up the 2%, or 3% in each of these, and we'd be negative. Okay. I want to show you what's not included in this. All right, because there are things that are not expenditures that are not included in there, but there's also revenues that are not included in there. So this is when I said it gets worse, but then it gets a little bit better. So the negotiations, the cost of negotiations is $1.2 million per year, and that is not included in the first interim that was as of October 31st. That will be included in the second interim, and I will later on show you a slide where I'm kind of giving you a little bit summary information about how this is going to affect us. So that is per year. So 17-18, 18-19, 19-20. So it's going to be using up our funds during those years. I talked to you about the unduplicated count increasing. And that's, this is a good thing. And it comes because it's increasing because we've got another way of capturing our students that would qualify for free and reduced. And so there are needy students that they don't need to fill out the application. They're automatically certified. And because of this new way, we're able to catch families that simply have not, requested it. So again, it's also the free and reduce and our EL population and our foster students. So remember I told you we were at 70.11 and we've got 70.11% going out into the future. Here, it's gone up to 72.23 as of Monday. Yesterday, it's gone up even more. It's at 72.86. but these slides are built because I kept changing it, and it takes a lot of work to continuously change it. And we're not final yet, because final is when it's certified, but the second interim will have a final. So just at the 72.23, we'll have an increased funding for this current year of $98,000, and combined out years of 18, 19, 19, 20, and 21, so 3 years, another $1.2 million additional funds, okay? And then from thereafter, we'll have $555,000 per year, based on the 72.23%. I just want to show you how that small increase really brings in a lot more money. Going up to the new amount of 72.86%, instead of 98,000 this year, we'd have 126. Instead of 1.2 million, so in other words, this here is going up from 0.23 to 0.86. Instead of 1.2 million, that will go up to 1.6 million. And instead of 555,000 yearly thereafter, it would go up to 714,000. When the LCFF is fully funded, and it's important for me to say that now, this number here will stay the same because it wouldn't be fully funded this year. We're not fully funded. This 3-year amount, instead of 1.2, it would go up to 2.4. And instead of 555,000 ongoing, it would be 922,000 ongoing. So this is how capturing those students and having this, and we can better serve those students because we have more funds for that. And it'll help us also to reduce the cost of those cuts that we're going to be looking at. Also, would be an adjustment, because there's declining enrollment, there's an adjustment in staff to serve fewer students. So there will be a savings of that in there as well. So these are the things that are not included in the multi-year projection. But I am, again, going to show you a little summary where I do include these costs so that you can see what it looks like for the cuts, reductions. Also, I want to let you know that Fund 17, that's where we have that $6 million that's committed for textbooks. So we've got $1 million coming out now. We've got $1 million coming out in 1920. And we're redirecting $1.35 million from the textbooks reserve, into that health and welfare reserve for our employees that helps mitigate, like on a one-time basis until the funds run out, the growing cost of health and welfare, so the medical benefits. District's covering 80% of the increases, and the employee will cover 20% until these funds run out, and then they go back to that other cap unless something else is done in between. So we'll be transferring that over, and then what happens with the increased cost of the health and welfare, we'll have a zero net effect in the general fund, because we will uncommit whatever amount we need to cover the additional costs through a resolution that you'll pass, to cover the extra costs, and so they'll net to zero, those extra costs. So that is kind of really nice for a few years until it runs out or it's supplemented with more funds. And again, a resolution will be required to uncommit, and then uncommit textbook ones, and to uncommit some textbook money, and a resolution to commit it for the health and welfare. So that's what those will be. All right. Again, important, because I want you to know where I'm coming from here. I went to a conference a couple weeks ago and got some a lot of really good information, have a lot of information that's coming from the state. And the Legislative Analyst's Office they're always giving their take on things, but this is the first time they're actually supplying a supplemental report on Prop 98 monies, because they think it's that important right now. They feel that they're really estimating that the Prop 98 is going to go up considerably in the current year and next year. And so there's always a true-up. What they haven't talked about is 16, 17, because it's always a three-year true-up. I mean, it's a 3-year period, and so I don't know if Prop 98 is going to be up or down for 16, 17, but that will come into the formula. We just don't know what that is yet. But for 17, 18, they are expecting $700 million, or $0.7 billion more. And the estimated amount for 18, 19 is an increase of $2.6 billion, okay? So these two combined is $3.3 billion. Plus, if you recall, we've been receiving one-time funds. Well, part of Prop 98 are these funds. We receive one-time funds. Those funds are available again, so the state can do something with those funds again. There's $1.1 billion of those funds. There's also, not only are we experiencing declining enrollment, but the statewide, they're experiencing declining enrollment. When that happens, the state has to give out less money for state aid to support districts that, like us, that don't get enough through property taxes. So that's going to free up $500 million. And then Prop 39 is sunsetting, so districts that don't request funds, they expect that they'll have $0.4 billion left there. So that unspent. So those combined are $2 billion, plus the $3.3 billion from these two, equal $5.3 billion more that we can expect, except again, I don't know what's going to happen from 16, 17. In 18, 19, that they'll budget out. Of that, K-12 gets 89%, and community colleges is 11%. So what can the state do with those funds? And what does the state, I'll tell you what they're likely to do with the funds. It is likely that LCFF will be fully funded next year. This is what the talk is, that they'll fully, instead of doing it, and of course the budget right now is with the different funding levels. And in January, we'll know what the governor says. The governor is going to term out, and this is his puppy. This is his baby. And everybody believes that he's going to want to see it fully funded before he leaves office. The cost of fully funding it is $2.7 billion, and he's got 5.3, and Prop 98 money he's got to use, right? So why not go ahead and fully fund the LCFF target? Fully fund the gap so that we meet the target. So that leaves $2.6 billion more. What will he do with that? More one-time funds? Likely we'll get some one-time funds. Will they augment the base of the LCFF? Now that would be really good. I don't know that he's going to do that. I'd like him to do that, but I'm not so sure. Or will they maybe support STRS and PERS? I don't know. The only thing I think is most likely is that we will get one-time funds, but at what level? All of it, part of it, or what else will he do with those funds? All right, so this is the slide that you're going to kind of put your thinking caps on this. So the first interim, these are the cuts. I'm talking about what kind of cuts we have to make in 1920 and 2021. Okay, according to the first interim, we have to make $3.6 million and $6.1 million. Now, as I said, we've negotiated salaries. This has got to be put in. A $1.2 million per year additional cost has to be put in the budget because we've negotiated, right? The number of staff to support our declining enrollment. We have a declining enrollment of, like I said, 244 students. There's a savings there of $450,000 a year. And the increased revenue from the supplemental and concentration grant that I talked to you about, those I've put in here, okay? I've put the supplemental and concentration at the 72.23%, not at the 72.86%, okay? There wasn't enough time for that. So in doing that, in putting in the salaries and making these other adjustments here, we go from $3.6 million cut to a $5.5 million cut and a $6.3 million cut here, so it increases it, okay? So that looks really scary, but if we have a 100% LCFF funding, what that will do is it will bring this down to 2.1 million, and it'll bring this 6.3 million down to 4.5 million dollars. And then we have one-time funds. If we get the one-time funds, if we got it all in one-time funds, so this is kind of like best case scenario for one-time funds, we get about 1%. So if the state's got 2.6 billion, we usually get, well, we should get somewhere around 2.6 million. If we got the 2.6 million, and I don't think we're going to get all of this, but if we did, these are the cuts that we would have to do in 1920. But in 2021, we would still need to, because one time, right? We would have to do $4 million in cuts. Now, this is the rosiest possibility, and I don't think this is going to really happen. If the one-time funds continued year after year at a $2.6 million level, this is not highly unlikely. Something is going to, if we don't have a recession, then there's a decent chance that it's possible, okay? If that happened, we wouldn't have any cuts to make at all, okay? And again, I did base this on this unduplicated count. I feel, now for second interim, if nothing else happened, if everything stayed status quo, then we would be here. This is where we would be, okay? But if the governor says it's going to fully fund, we're going to be here. And I'm going to say, I think we're going to be somewhere between these two. That's what I would forecast. But we need to take this very seriously, because we have these cuts in the out year. The 1920 out year for the district is part of our multi-year projection, the official multi-year projection, which right now is showing $3.6 million of needed cuts. If we come, when we come back to you in March for the second interim, if there are cuts that are needed in order to maintain our 3% reserve for economic uncertainty, we will have to identify those cuts. And the board will have to identify them. The county will require us to tell them what cuts, whether it's or transfers of revenues in from committed funds, if we, do a combination of whatever, we will have to bring those in, or we won't have a positive certification any longer. We'll be qualified, because qualified means we may not meet our financial obligations. Negatives are we cannot meet, but qualified is we may not meet. And if we don't have that list to allow us to have that 3% reserve for economic uncertainty, they will consider us insolvent, and we will have a qualified opinion instead of a positive opinion. For now, and I want to point out on the that attachment, Appendix A, that is a part of this. There's a second paragraph that says you need to identify them now. You do not have to identify them now. I spoke with the county, we discussed it. I told them why I believe that we do not have to identify them at this meeting. They agreed with me, and they will not require that. I have a new one that removes that second portion, all you need to do is acknowledge that with this budget, the way it is, that those cuts would be required. But you do not, but come the second interim, we will have to be looking at that if there's a negative, and we will have to do that. So I just wanted to show you again the STRS and PERS. So compared to last year, this year we are paying $772 rounded, $1,000 more. Okay? Next year, compared to last year, it'll be 1.6 million. The following year, 2.5 rounded. The year after that, 3.1 and 3.2 million dollars more than last year, just to cover STRS and PERS. So this year, we're paying 11.4% of our expenditures is going to STRS and PERS. Before they started doing this big raising in 13-14, it was 5.4%. So it is more than double this year than it was in 13-14. And by the time we fully pay STRS and PERS at the highest rate, it'll triple. It'll be 3 times. So up through since it increased, so increased in 14-15 and onward, since it's increased, we have paid out $5.1 million more in STRS and PERS. And when it's fully funded, at the STRS at 19.1% and the PERS at 28.2%, we will be paying $5 million every year more for STRS and PERS than we did in 13-14. So this is like really important. The state, you really want the state to kind of step up to the plate, maybe make a reserve, commit a reserve for us like we're doing for our employees and health benefits and such. So at this point, we can still certify positive. The county agrees with us that we will be able to meet our financial obligations. And again, the second interim will have a lot more information for you. At least we'll know what we're going to be funded, what the governor is proposing, and we'll know if there's a proposal for one-time funds again or not. And we'll also know better where Prop 98 is when they bring in the 16-17 year as well. So I do recommend that we certify positive. Now, questions?
Any questions?
For the,
Thank you.
for the PERS, it's, go ahead. No, you called. You go
Oh,
first.
you sure?
Yeah.
All right. So I just had a small question about the decline in enrollment. So I just wanted to clarify. So you're projecting that we'll have a decline in enrollment, but still having an increase in unduplicated count?
Yes, a percentage. Because it's a percentage of our students.
Okay.
And the increase in unduplicated count, that brings in our S&C grant funds, supplemental and concentration grant funds, are now based on those fewer kids, those fewer students. So in the out years, fewer students are already recognized. So when I went through those numbers, that is what we'd get if we maintained, first off, if we maintain our percentage of unduplicated count. That's important. And if we stayed at the declining enrollment level that we're at.
Oh, I see.
It's all based on staying at the declining enrollment level that we're at. If we decline more, it's going to get worse. If we end up with more students coming in, it will get better. And by the way, part of my conversation with the county was that I make sure, that's why it's longer than was planned, although I think I always go over. I see heads bobbing, but part of that was that I inform you, the reason why they have you sign this is because there are only too often where the business department will put in the cuts and show you what it looks like, but not tell you those cuts are there. And so you're moving along and, hey, we're fine, we've put in the cuts, we've got no authorization of what it's gonna be, and the board doesn't even know that it's coming. And so they know that you know that you're informed. And so that's why they have you sign that, because they want to make sure that you understand that. And I wanted to make it really clear, the different possibilities and where I think we are.
All right, and then my second question was, in the past, you've shown us your, like a conservative budget and then less conservative. So are we going to see any other budgets besides this one? Because this is based on a conservative, was it?
This is a very conservative budget.
Yeah.
Okay? We're using the School Services of California's.
Yeah, the school services.
LCFF gap funding. And so the thing with the other budgets is that all I do is adjust how much the cut's going to be for the out years, right? So what happens is those out years, we just, instead of being 3.6 million, it shows something else. And so that's what I'm trying to do here, more understand, just focus on what it's really going to look like if we get the full funding. If we don't get the full funding,
Then the 6 million.
it's going to be somewhere in between.
Okay.
But I think there's a pretty good chance that it's going to be full funding.
All right. And then I know that we're talking about moving money from the textbook reserve over to, pay for some of the health and welfare increases, but is any of the other reserve funds represented in any of this that you showed us tonight, or are we leaving those funds alone?
Well, that is up to you. You could come to when I come to you, and we'll have discussions prior to that with what the governor expects to fund, what we can put into our budget, and if there are cuts that need to be made, it will be the board who determines what will be cut, or what are those, because one of the things I've told you in the past is those commitments, they can be uncommitted and flow back into the general fund. That is one of the mechanisms. And I would imagine that you probably want to do a combination and really consider what, and again, the whole idea of having a lot of reserves is to allow you the opportunity to make wise decisions and not just react to the situation. So it gives you, if you look at it and say, well, these are low-hanging fruit, we can make these changes, we can save $2 million, but we still need to save another $2 million, so let's figure that out for next year, and we'll transfer $2 million in to cover that for now. That might be something that you decide to do. But it gives you the opportunity to figure out what is best for the district, but we do have to act. Depending on what what happens in January, we do have to act upon the budget if we can't meet our 3% reserves.
So the short answer is that no, those options don't show up in here because those are options that we have to decide on.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Well, I just want to congratulate you for presenting another possible positive certification. And I have no other questions.
You saved yourself a possible. I will be
Well, 'cause we haven't
congratulating you
voted
guys
yet.
next time, right?
We haven't voted yet, so that's.
Yeah, I know. I also want to remind you guys something, and that is we regularly have some type of carryover. We don't spend every dime we've got. As you see, the carryover that I said was included before, right here, look at the site carryover and the district carryover. if that $1 million doesn't get spent, I mean, yeah, we re-budget it, right, the following year. But it does go back into the fund balance for that
Yeah.
year. So, but that's kind of like a one-time savings each year, it's the same thing each year.
Christmas club.
So that.
Yeah.
Trustee
Yeah.
Brusqueta?
The question I had was, you talk about declining enrollment, but then you talk about ADA. So is that put together somehow?
Yes.
So when.
If you have 100 kids,
Uh-huh.
they don't show up every day. They show up 97.5% of the time
Then you
in
get
this district. So our ADA is 97.5, whereas our enrollment would be 100. So that's why, it's important that the kids show up.
No, I
to
realize
be
that, but I'm just
educated
saying, when you're
mostly.
talking about, when you're saying that, are you separating them? Or are you telling us,
Well, declining, yeah, okay, so declining,
That's a
basically,
good
we
question. I mean,
put the
point.
same formula. We say if we have 100 fewer kids enrolled, then because we have 100 fewer kids, our ADA is going to go down by 97.5. We're going to get less money by 97.5 kids in a year.
right.
but I'm looking at the other part of it, the ADA. Because and I'll share all this when we give our report, but it was astounding to find out how much money we lose.
Oh, yeah.
And that really, to brag and say that we have 97 or 95%, is not bragging, because they showed us how much money you lose.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a
Well,
lot of
and not
money.
only losing the money, but like you
But,
said, the kids don't show up.
Let me just finish my thoughts. Okay, so what I'm just saying is that I like to look at that separately and have it listed so that we actually can see what, in dollar amount, what it's costing us when we lose them.
For the kids that aren't showing, the
That don't show up to
additional amounts.
school.
Sure, I can do that for you.
Yeah, because
But we've
it's
been-
confusing when we see this. It's one way or the other, and I just want to make sure that we're aware that what we're losing and what we need, and what I heard, how we can make that a whole lot better than what it is today, even though we feel good about it. Sounds like great, 97%, but that 97%, what does it really mean in dollars that's affecting our budget?
It's the
Okay.
2.5% that are
Well, I don't
not
want to talk
there.
percentage, I'm talking about dollars.
Right, right.
That is really understandable to people to say,
Okay.
whoa, this is
How
what's
much we're
happening
losing.
to our budget. So I won't go into detail because it's a big discussion.
Yeah, and we can,
But
We've talked
in
about it
advisory.
from the other point of view of, with the whole showing up campaign, how much money we're actually getting by increasing our ADA.
Yeah,
So we have been discussing it, but just
Mhm.
from the other perspective.
yeah, but
Right.
it's got to be shown, I like to see it shown.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Trustee Koo?
I have a question on slide 9. You talk about kind of projections into 2021. Does that just kind of assume that the current kind of budget is going to move forward, or does it take into account like possible changes with a new governor starting in 2019?
I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yes, go to slide 9.
Okay. Sorry, I don't hear well.
So I think the question is, the 2021 column, does it assume that the current budget current school budget goes forward?
Yeah, moves
Yes.
as is, or
State budget.
California budget?
state budget. Sorry, yeah, because I'm assuming in 2019 there's a new governor, and it's
Yeah.
probably going to have a shift in priorities. Does that affect any of that kind of stuff, or is
Yeah.
that more of just?
I'm sorry. Bernie.
So I can answer
I'm
it.
sorry,
So right
I
now,
can't hear from this
so
ear
that
at all,
if you look at those bullets as they go down, those are different assumptions that should they take place. We don't know who the new governor will be, but we think that at least if Governor Brown is able to accomplish any of those things before he leaves office, that it impacts future budgets. So there may be more money coming to education with the new governor. There can't be less because that's constitutional. We have to get at least what we've always gotten.
Although we've seen that happen before.
Although they have taken it away from us and not ever given it back to us, but they can do it. But hopefully they will not again. So yeah, so that's what that is.
No crystal balls.
Those are good questions.
Again, I think I would forecast somewhere between here,
She did.
Yeah.
one of these two.
That's manageable.
I have no questions.
I had a question. First of all, thank you. You always do a wonderful job in presenting. This is hard. I think is one of the hardest parts of the things that we review is looking at the budget. And I appreciate you clarifying a lot of things for us. I wanted to ask with our subcommittees, since we're looking at the second interim in March, would this be, that when we speak to discussion, is this something that our Budget and Facilities Committee would be doing outside of our meetings in addition to us getting updates?
Very likely, we'll do something after the governor's budget comes out, like we did last year with the subcommittee, just to give sort of a heads up, here's what's coming, here's what will be. Yeah, we will probably do something in those months. And likely, we may do it district-wide, and if we have our district office, to invite anybody to come to something like that, just to get information about what's coming down the line.
And my second ask is, I think what Trustee Buswella was alluding to was one of the workshops at the CSBA. Her name escapes me. She's from San Francisco Unified School District.
Hetty Chang.
Yes.
Yes.
She had said that there would be a report possibly uploaded to DataQuest that would provide those numbers by county. And it would be exact numbers and not percentages, but we would be able to see that. And I think that's what she was asking. And I think that it would be wonderful for us to be able, if we don't wait for that, if there's an opportunity, you're already doing a lot, but it would be wonderful to see it detailed in that way.
So one of the things, just to bring to the board's attention, when we started our focus on attendance, we had 96.5% ADA. So we bumped it up to 97.5%. We can probably get better, but minimally, I think, because that that is at 2.5% left. That is about 5 days of absences, which one bad cold can get you 5 days of absences, or 2 small colds, and every child generally gets at least one, and most adults get 2 to 3 a year. So I think an average of 5 absences per kid. Maybe we can get 4.5 absences per kid, but I think it's because kids get sick all the time. There are a lot of unexcused absences, which I think we can target, but I think the excused absences, I think we're about as low as we can get there.
Thank you. So, thank you again, Ms. Kessler, for the presentation. So I would like to ask for a motion unless there's any other questions.
I just want to make sure, in doing so, do we have to state that without the last paragraph?
Yeah, I think in doing so, you may want to approve it with the revised Appendix A. That you approve the interim report as attached with the revised Appendix A.
Okay.
I will make the motion that we approve the first interim budget report with the revision to Appendix A.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you again, Ms. Kessler.
Thanks, Judy.
Oh, good news.
Sorry.
We are now on to board policies and administrative regulations. We are looking at September 2016. Second reading. Does anyone have any items to discuss?
I did not
Need
have
for
any either.
clarification? Any edits? If not, I'd like to receive a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading of
September 2016.
September 2016 CSBA Board Policy Revisions as stated.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now we move on to our reports. Our board study session, Masters in Governance, Course 3, School Finance, as well as receiving a presentation from Trustee Koo on the CSBA conference we recently attended. Thank you.
So Master in Governance 3 was actually coincidentally school finance. So it's actually pretty much kind of an overview of the first interim report. So thank you for tonight for your recap of that. So the workshop was like a great overview of just kind of state finances and school finance in general. It kind of gave an overview of Prop 13 and Prop 98 and how that affects school funding in general. And then kind of talks a lot about during the 2000s how that kind of ate into a lot of the school revenues along the way, and how along the way Prop 39 and the LCFF process helped kind of restore a lot of that funding. They were talking a lot about how back before Prop 13, California's funding per pupil actually was pretty much at the national level, or actually a little even higher. But since Prop 13, since 1978, it's gone down, and it's pretty much ebbed and flowed as the economy went up and down. And even now, we're still only back to the pre-recession days of 2007, 2008. So there's still a long way to go in terms of that. And then we talked a lot about board responsibilities on the budget. So tonight, approving the first interim report, but also kind of find ways to improve the budget development process. So the subcommittees we have kind of talk stuff through, reviewing the budget, auditing the budget, and just kind of communicating the budget to the community. I mean, it's a huge report, huge document, and try and find ways to kind of simplify the process so that anybody can actually understand what the budget is and what it actually says. And on top of that, the budget to them, as they were saying, is a policy document reflecting on what the school board actually sees as its vision for the district. So in terms of policies adopted in the LCAP process, funding for certain facilities, programs, resources. So it's kind of a whole combination of all of those kind of different factors. But additionally, it's also, as you talked about, kind of making sure that our school budget is actually positive certification, making sure that we actually have enough funding for the future. So there's that. And then we also talked about ways to raise school funding, parcel taxes, we passed one last year, bonds, we celebrated the TRP, ribbon cutting, so kind of a lot of those kind of different factors as a way to kind of raise funds to kind of accommodate some of the possible less money in other ways. And then we also talked about different steps along the process, so setting policies, figuring out budget guidelines, planning, preparation, adopting the budget, implementing, and evaluating based off of the budget. So kind of went from beginning to end, what we should know. We went through a first interim report, line by line, which is kind of it was a long about an hour and a half of just that, and reviewing that, and the budget audit. So we pretty much just kind of went through line by line, trying to understand what each of these lines represent, and trying to actually figure out where there might be possible flaws. So like, for example, they gave us a sample budget and asked us to kind of go in and see where we saw any abnormalities. So whether like one year had a lot of funding for this program, but the next year got cut dramatically, and trying to see, was there some reason? Was there like an increase in textbook adoptions? Was there a cut in these kind of programs? To try to figure out physically like how we can actually identify changes along the way. So there was that. I actually thought it was a really great refresher, especially for tonight. You kind of talked through a lot of the stuff that was talked about at the workshop, so I thought it was a great kind of a connection to that. So yeah, so that was about a month and a half ago, and then a couple of days ago, I joined several of my board members at the CSBA conference. But before that, I actually flew down earlier to go to the delegate assembly meeting. We had a day and a half meeting, talk about statewide policies on education. We elected a whole new set of leadership for the CSBA. The new president is Mike Walsh from the Butte County Office of Education, and we elected a whole bunch of people from across California just to represent the CSBA in different capacities. One of the things that I actually want to highlight from the delegate assembly meetings was we had a breakout session on trying to figure out ways that we can recommend legislative tactics or issues that we thought that the CSBA should advocate for or lobby for us on our behalf. There was like increasing funding for staff training and technology, funding for special needs students, counseling programs, mental health services. There was a discussion about trying to kind of better organize school board members with local elected officials as a way to kind of work together to kind of pair up together and actually advocate different members of the legislature or different organizations as a way to advocate for school funding. We were talking about different pathways and credentials for teachers, so finding ways that they could become teachers, especially with our incoming teacher shortage situation. We were talking about the STIRS and PERS situation, talking about how we can possibly cover liabilities as costs, you're saying doubles and triples in the years to come. And then talking about parcel taxes, possibly reducing it down to 55% to make it easier for districts across California to actually get it passed and possibly kind of increase school funding at a statewide level. And then we also talked about legislative action updates, so a whole bunch of bills was signed by the governor this year, and they just kind of give a nice recap. And then there was another thing about the LCAP and a update to the dashboard. I believe you're giving an update at the next meeting, so I won't mention anything about that, but it was kind of a refresh on different features of the new LCAP dashboard online and comparisons among different topics. Yeah, so that was the delegate assembly, and then after that I went to the larger general conference. A couple of the topics that I went to was one about raising the bar on teacher hiring quality. It was talking about working with the school district and our local unions to find ways to raise performance by changing the culture in the school district, making sure that teachers felt like they were included, finding ways that we can help them along the way, even if we can't give them bigger increase as they would like. We also talked about professional development, which we've done, having coaches for teachers. So there's like a lot of stuff that our school district already does. And then I also went to a workshop on student and family engagement. So I know every year we do a family survey. They were talking about ways to increase that along the way. They're always saying aim for 100% return on the surveys, which is pretty difficult, but they also noted that 100% might be ideal, but you rather have quality feedback and not just any feedback, because there's a lot of feedback that can come in. A lot might not be useful or helpful, so they thought that, they said focus on those kind of stuff. And then also, in terms of the survey, look at permanent sets of data. So there's a whole bunch of questions along the way, but try to find out and see if there's any key areas that stand out a lot more and not just any areas. And then on top of that, look at areas for growth and then try to find ways to address it by talking to stakeholders, to students, families, school staff, central office staff, district staff in general. So yeah, I enjoyed the conference again. I learned a lot along the way in terms of statewide education stuff as well as on local and kind of more community. So that was really helpful and just informative to become a better school member.
Thank you. Yeah, that was awesome. You were very comprehensive on the MIG, especially since it was quite some time ago.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Vice President Koo. Much appreciated. Does anyone have comments for Vice President Koo or questions?
Nope.
Thank you. Thank you again for your presentation. Right now, we will move on to board member comments, reports, and reflection on our board meeting guidelines. And we will begin with Trustee Dr. Douglas.
Okay. I was looking at keeping our focus on the best interests of our students, which is always something that I like to keep at the forefront of our mind, or my mind, when looking at the dollars, because there's always a little bit of a tension between those. We want to give our students everything, but we have X amount of money with which to do it. So I think that this board has done an admirable job of striking that balance, and may we long continue to do so.
I selected, we will work toward the future, learning from the past. Today we talked about the budget, kind of learning from what we've done in the past and trying to figure out how best we can move forward in the future. I thought that was pretty good, especially since that was the bulk of tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Trustee Bruce.
I said, I looked at, we will keep our remarks brief and to the point and stay focused on the topic at hand and avoid getting sidetracked. And I think we pretty much did that, so.
Thank you.
And as I said before, we'll hope that in January, when we have our meeting of our kind of getting together and planning for the year, that Csea representative comes to meet us. I'd like to talk about this chart and how we've used it and what we feel that we should do for the future. And other than that, so any other comments that I have is just that back to the policy that situation. There will be a newsletter that will be going out, and we're going to talk about it. And I believe that the more that we reach out to the community, which we did for this event, we brought back a lot of people to come to see what we've done that might not have come. We reached out and got folks that retired and had them come, and the families included the students in partaking in the event. We had a remarkable young girl who sang, and she was amazing. She will probably be very famous somewhere down the road because what a voice she had. And the band was exquisite. The dancers were wonderful. Everything that we did a little bit to not bore everybody, but enough to make everybody just say, wow. And we couldn't thank enough three of our gals from the cafeteria. They worked so hard. They knew exactly how to run that place, I'll tell you. And it was good rather than just volunteers like parents coming in, and they may not know what to do and how to do it, but they were great and enjoyed themselves as well. So just every little piece of it. I'll get you the stuff that we're sending out. Thank yous to everybody too, and let you see. But we tried our best, and I think we did it all the way, is that we did not spend any school funding on this event, and it was all donations from outside, and also the school PTSO gave money as well. And so that's what we were proud of, to not take money away from anything else in the school. So.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it.
Trustee Ali?
All right, thanks. Just want to extend thanks to all our faculty and staff, and of course superintendent and his cabinet. And I focused on the same as Trustee Koo, that we would work toward the future and learning from the past. And I'm looking forward to another year of, fiscal year, I guess, of doing this. Not fiscal year, but
School year.
yeah. Well, we're already in the school year, but anyway.
Calendar
There you
year.
go.
There you are.
Calendar year.
You often wonder, whoever decided on the school year being so far down in the year,
Yep.
instead of saying January to December, but it is what it is.
Farm schedule. It has a history in the schedule of farm labor,
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it does.
which, of course, is essentially, well, maybe even utterly irrelevant now, but there we are. We're used to it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trustee Ali. I chose, we will keep our focus on the best interests of our students, and I think it was best echoed by Trustee Douglas that I believe this board does that. We, since I've come on, I've seen it before I came on, and I've seen it even more so, us building cohesion and collaboration with each other, which is important. There was something that Wes Moore had said during general session, and he spoke to potential and opportunity, and that still resonates with me because I believe as community members and those who are in leadership, he spoke that students and people, I'm paraphrasing what he said, that we have potential. But I believe what he alluded to when he spoke to opportunities, that not everyone has opportunities. While many of our students may be full of potential, I believe it's our job to ensure that they have the opportunities. And I believe that we continue to strive to do that, and I believe that we will be able to continue to do that. We've done well putting all egos aside and working in one spirit, and it's been amazing to be able to do that with each of you. And I look forward for us to continue to work in that spirit with a sense of oneness and keeping our community and our students as our primary focus. So I wanted to extend an invitation from our mayor and vice mayor for next Monday's city council meeting, as they will be acknowledging two of our students from the district. And I want to thank our superintendent and Ms. Maria Covere for helping us in facilitating that last minute, because that came to us and it required immediate attention. And so they will be recognizing 2 of our students, and I think that's much appreciated. So that will be this coming Monday. But I wish you all happy holidays, and I thank you for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. Like I said before, we do not need a title to serve. We should always be willing to serve and to give back any chance that we have. So with that said, I wish you all the very best this holiday season, and we'll see you guys again next Monday, if not in January.
And if we can remember to close in memory of former teacher Ms. Helen Mock, that'd be great.
So in honor and remembrance of Miss Helen Mock, I'd like to take a moment of silence. And we close this meeting in her honor. Thank you.